The race is on for major alcohol producers and snack makers to get into the cannabis space. And as we reported on Friday, Diageo is already in talks, we believe, with at least 3 marijuana players about a partnership. So just who might be next? Well, our next guest used to be the head of sales for Constellation Brands in Canada, was also president of Moosehead Breweries, and led sales and marketing at McCain Foods. Stephen Poirier is now on the board of directors for cannabis grower and producer Biome Grow. Stephen, good to be with you. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We were talking about during the commercial break, your background is so interesting, and the fact that you said that you were in retirement and you've come back and on the board of this company, you obviously must see something happening here.
Well,
what is
it's a great new development for the Canadian industry. It's not very often you get a whole new industry starting up. It's kind of like high tech. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the similarities between beverage alcohol and the cannabis market are incredible. I mean, they're really going after the same consumer for the most part. Going to be sold in many cases in the same stores or by the same customers. And so it's really interesting. And so, I joined the board of Biome because of my connections in the beverage alcohol industry at all the liquor commissions across the country. I know those people really well, and we can have fruitful discussions about how to get our product on their shelves as quickly as possible.
And what do you see, though, as it relates to beverage companies continuing to look to partner with cannabis companies?
Well, certainly the cannabis is going to be infringing on the beverage alcohol space. It's consumers looking for a way to get enjoy life a little bit more by getting a high, whether it's through the alcohol or cannabis. So it's really expanding that whole market. So if you're a beverage alcohol producer, you don't want to lose market share.
Yeah.
And the market's going to be bigger, but they still want share. So if they want to maintain their position within the overall marketplace, they're going to need to have a footprint somehow in the cannabis market.
Do you think that for any type of beverage company that it is absolutely a must to make a partnership?
I don't think for everybody. I think if you're a niche player, it's not necessary. But if you're a really big player, such as Constellation, Diageo, InBev, which owns Anheuser-Busch, any of the really big players, they're going to want to be involved. And possibly even beyond that, if you're a large beverage company such as PepsiCo or Coke, who also have snack food divisions, they will probably be very interested in getting a footprint within the cannabis market.
How large do you think this market is going to end up being? And because some people, you're smiling, some people will say this is the beginning of the alcohol industry as well. Do you see it that way?
Nobody really knows, because nobody knows how big the black market is today. So it's really anybody's guess. I've seen estimates, for North America, it was between $35 and $70 billion in revenue, 5-10 years down the road. And that probably doesn't even include the medical marijuana side. Yeah. So it's going to be huge, but nobody knows how big huge is.
Stephen, it's interesting. I'm curious. This company that you have associated yourself with your history, your career, why this company? And I'm asking that in the sense that I think it's so difficult for investors to understand how to analyze these various companies because the industry is just so new. What is it about this company that you like?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's really 3 segments that they go after. There's the commercial business going after the beverage alcohol segment. There's the domestic medical marijuana business, and there's the export medical marijuana business.
Okay.
So Biome is going to be very proactive in all 3 segments. But within the commercial side, a lot of the larger cannabis companies today, they're looking at going out with big national brands. Biome's strategy is going to be more of the grassroots strategy, much like the craft beer industry, and working primarily in smaller markets such as, say, Nova Scotia or Newfoundland or Manitoba, where consumers are much more oriented to buying products that are produced locally. When I was at Moosehead Breweries based in New Brunswick, you really got a sense of, brands like that do much better in their home province because consumers want to support the local economy. So that's going to be Biome's domestic commercial strategy. being the grassroots supplier.
Are there any other ones trying to do that same strategy that you're seeing so far?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. And let's talk a little bit about the medical marijuana side of it as well. It's interesting to me that we are seeing the beverage companies interested in the cannabis, but I haven't seen much in the way of the pharmaceutical companies, really. And I don't know if that's because obviously they want to protect their market share on the pharmaceutical drug side, but are you hearing any rumblings of where they're standing these days?
I haven't heard any rumblings, but it would make sense for them to get into it, because just as the commercial side is going to impact the beverage alcohol segment, you know that the medical marijuana side will affect the drug companies, particularly once a lot more research and studies have been done to show the positive effects of using a medical marijuana product, which up until now there hasn't been a lot of studies, but a lot of companies are starting to do that. Biome is working with St. University to conduct studies to show the efficacy of their products. So I think once that starts to happen, I think the pharmaceutical industry will be paying a lot more attention.
And just to go back for one moment in terms of how the cannabis companies are going to be able to differentiate themselves, I think there's still a little bit of confusion, certainly amongst some of us, that how, with the marketing rules that the government is going to set out, how do you actually market the product and differentiate yourself when that's going to be limited, from what I understand?
Yeah, I believe a lot of it is going to have to be done at the store level. Okay. So that when people come in, that the staff is trained, well trained on how to sell people certain products depending on what kind of effect they're looking for. And certainly Biome has partnered with a virtual reality company that will have virtual reality machines in the stores to help both the person selling the product and the consumer explore their range of products to see what would be best for them.
So almost a robot.
Almost.
Is that, would that be fair?
Well, it's
the virtual reality replacing a person who could give that kind of commentary?
True, yeah, exactly.
Interesting. That's something I don't think we've talked about yet. Stephen, very nice to be with you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.